You can use all ground beef in this recipe like I'm using, or you can split it with ground beef and Italian sausage. This is about 1.5 pounds of ground beef that I'm cooking and chopping until no longer pink. This beef seems to be on the leaner side, but if you need to, drain any excess fat. Adding in 1 small diced onion and half a red bell pepper. You could also add in some mushrooms, anything that you would add in your lasagna. Cooking and stirring for 2 to 3 minutes. Of course we have to have some garlic. This is 4 cloves of minced garlic, and I'm also adding in a pinch of salt and black pepper. Cooking and stirring for a minute. I have 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Here you could also use a combo of diced tomatoes or tomato sauce. Use what you have in your pantry. For the seasonings, I have 2 teaspoons of Italian seasonings and 1 teaspoon of basil. Giving that a good stir and turning up my heat to bring this up to a simmer. I'm slowly adding in 5 cups of beef broth, and if need be, I'll add a little more later. It all depends on the consistency that you like, whether you like it thick like we do or more soupy. Bringing this up to a simmer and cooking for 5 minutes. For this recipe, you want to use 10 to 12 ounces of pasta. I had half a box of lasagna that I broke randomly into pieces, some small and some bigger. I also have 1 cup of shells that I needed to use, so in they go. Again, using what I have. Giving that a stir, bringing up to a simmer, and cooking for about 15 minutes or until the pasta is tender. After the pasta is done, I'm turning off my heat. I have a 1/4 cup of grated Romano cheese, or you can use Parmesan cheese. To make this a little creamier, I'm adding in a 1/3 cup of cream, and this is optional. I think the cream mellows everything out and brings everything together. Giving that a good stir and on to the final step. Spooning the lasagna soup into an oven-proof bowl. I'm topping with a tablespoon of ricotta cheese and sprinkling with a nice layer of grated mozzarella cheese. I'm popping these under the broiler for a minute or until the cheese is melted and bubbly. And here you go. The lasagna soup is ready. Garnishing with a little parsley and serving with toasted garlic bread. After you eat this soup, you will be hard-pressed to make the traditional lasagna. So cheesy, comforting, and good. I hope you give this homemade lasagna soup recipe a try and enjoy. Tonight, I'm making my ultimate stuffed pepper soup. It is so quick, easy, and delicious. I'm using ground beef with lots of bell peppers and other vegetables, and one of the special ingredients is fire-roasted tomatoes. These tomatoes really add a nice flavor to the soup. So let's get started. I have 1.5 pounds of ground beef that I'm cooking and chopping until done, and this will take about 5 to 7 minutes. After spooning out the meat, you can see I have a good bit of fat left. I'm removing and leaving a good 2 to 3 tablespoons of fat in the bottom of my pot. This soup will have a little fat from the meat, but we don't want a river of fat. On medium heat, I'm adding in 1 cup of diced onions, 3 stalks of celery, and 2 medium carrots. Adding in a pinch of salt and black pepper. Cooking and stirring for 5 minutes or until the onions start to change color. Onions, carrots, and celery are always a good start to a good soup. They are the hardest vegetables, so you want to start cooking them first. Here I have 2 good cups of multicolored bell peppers. This is stuffed pepper soup, so we want to have lots of peppers. cooking and stirring for 2 to 3 minutes. I also want to mention that you should try and cut your vegetables into similar sizes so they cook evenly. Adding in 1 good tablespoon of minced garlic, cooking and stirring for about 30 seconds. I love that smell. The other special ingredient I have is 1 cup of diced roasted red bell pepper. Yes, these are directly out of the jar. I open the jar to make sandwiches and pasta dishes, and then it sits in the refrigerator. I thought this would be a great time to use the roasted bell peppers to add additional flavor to the soup, and they did their job. Cooking and stirring for 1 minute, and then I'm adding in 1 28-ounce can of fire-roasted tomatoes. Giving that a good stir, and I'm turning my heat up to bring this up to a simmer. For the seasonings, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of parsley, 1½ teaspoons of oregano, 2 teaspoons of basil, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Giving that a good stir and cooking for 1 minute. Now I'm adding my ground beef back into the pot, giving that another good stir. I have a quart of homemade beef broth, and I ended up using the entire jar. Depending on the consistency that you like your soup, you may want to add more or less. You could also use vegetable or chicken broth. Bringing the soup up to a simmer, covering and cooking for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm giving the soup a good stir and I'm adding in a 1/2 cup of white rice. I'm using a parboiled long grain rice that I rinsed well and drained. Another good stir, covering and cooking on low for 20 minutes. I give it a stir about halfway through. The rice and all the vegetables are tender. You can see the consistency of the soup. If you want, you can add more broth to make it thinner. Also, if you're feeding a hungry crew, you could bulk it up with more rice and vegetables and broth. You could really change this recipe up in a lot of different ways. Maybe even use an Italian sausage or ground chicken for the meat. Another good thing to add to stuffed pepper soup is a piece of Parmesan cheese rind. I didn't have any, but it really adds another level of richness to the soup. Giving the soup one last taste. I'm adding in a pinch more of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and parsley. Stirring, covering, and cooking for 2 more minutes, and then we are ready to eat. This ultimate stuffed pepper soup is so easy and comforting. A great way to use up those garden vegetables. I hope you give my soup recipe a try and enjoy. If you like this video recipe, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button to receive my future recipes. Please feel free to share my channel with your friends and family. It really helps my channel grow and it is greatly appreciated. And until next time, much love.